1.2 helps us practice order of operations, and on your Cornell notes you should have already written down the order of operations and absolute value and the examples that went with those. So those can be helpful as you're working through these examples, and you want to keep in mind, and even if you have to write it on your paper, the order of operations, and you want to make sure you keep following it. So when we are evaluating, remember we learned that that just means find the value. We're just going to simplify this and get one final answer. So we have no parentheses, we have no exponents, we don't have any multiplication, but we do have division. So that would start first. Now, technically, I would like you to rewrite everything for now, and then 12 divided by 3 would be 4. So we're going to work in this funnel pattern down, doing one operation at a time. Sometimes you can do 2 operations. Now, since this is all addition that's left over, then we are simply going to add all of these together. You don't have to do it in 2 separate steps. 9 plus 5 is 14 plus 4 more is 18. Done. Very simple. Okay. Moving on to 2. We've got multiplication here and here. So you actually can do both of these multiplications. 17 times 2 is 34, and 8 times 4 is 32. Do both multiplications at once, and then you can do your addition. 34 plus 32 is 66. 3. All right, order of operations says parentheses have to happen first. So we can't do anything with that 5. We're not going to distribute this because we don't have any variables inside. We need to simplify this. So we want to make sure we do the multiplication here first. Everything else gets recopied. 3 times 7 is 21. Okay. Now we're going to do addition and subtraction. Oops, here we are. Addition and subtraction from left to right. So 6 plus 21 is 27. Now we can do the 27 minus 4, which is 23. And finally, we can do the multiplication. 5 times 23 is 115. Now you're taking these notes. You should have everything on your paper that I have here. And I'll be checking those. That's your homework grade. So make sure you've got all of this. No skipping. Don't put your work above here and squeeze it in really tiny. Show it so I can give you as many partial points as possible, even if you get the answer wrong on the test. Number 4, parentheses must happen first, which means we get 4 times 6, which is 24. Everything else stays the same. Please do not make the mistake of subtracting these right here. Subtraction is like the last thing you're going to do. So next we are going to multiply 3 times 24, which is 72. And then 52 minus 72 would be negative 20. Okay. Parentheses first, multiplication second, subtraction last. All right, we got this big one here. We can do, there's no division, so what we can do is start with all the multiplication first. So the 5's not going to go anywhere. 3 times 7 is 21, minus 4 times 2, which is 8, plus 5 times 7, which is 35. Now we're down to just addition and subtraction. This is key. You can't add these two and add these two and do subtraction at the end. You have to add these two first to get 26. Then you have to subtract these two to get 18. And then you can finally add these two to get 53. If you add these two together, 8 plus 35, you'll get 43. And then you'll have 26 minus 43, which is obviously not going to be 53. So be very careful that you follow. I think everybody knows how to write it, but you actually have to follow this one step at a time and pay close attention to it. Now, how do you do order of operations that involve absolute value? Okay, absolute value is just a grouping. It's like parentheses. So you've got to do everything inside the absolute value first. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. But one of the common mistakes is then to forget to take the absolute value. You kind of just treat it just as a parenthesis. You can't do that. So if it says the absolute value of negative 1 is 1 unit away from 0. So the absolute value of negative 1 is 1. and 1 plus 7 is 8. Okay. Now in this case, the 2 that's right on the outside of the absolute value is going to be multiplied, but not until we complete what's on the inside here though. So negative 8 minus 4, so leave, change, opposite, that's negative 8 plus negative 4 gives us negative 12. The absolute value of negative 12 is positive 12, and now all that leaves behind is just grouping symbols now because I've taken the absolute value, and we can then multiply this together. So 2 times 12 is 24. In 8, we need to do both absolute values first, and then take the absolute value, and the subtraction will be the last. So 10 minus 3 is 7, but we haven't taken the absolute value yet, so you need to leave the bars out there. The absolute value of negative 3 plus 2 would be negative 1. Now when you write your absolute value bars, you really want to make sure they're a little bit taller than your numbers, so you don't confuse them to be ones, of course. So now I need to take the absolute value of 7. 7 is 7 units from 0. Negative 1 is only 1 unit from 0, and so it's 7 minus 1, which is 6. Okay. Finally, we want to do evaluate, and we're given some particular variables, and we can plug those in. So the first thing I would like you to do is just plug the numbers in and then start doing your order of operations. You might have to write a little smaller here so that you have enough room. So 2 times x, which is 4. A and n are next to each other, which means they're going to be multiplied. So a is 2 and n is 10. 2 times 10. And b is 5. So those are going to be multiplied. Now when they are written together like this, no matter what, they always happen first. So these two things, they're going to happen first. You can also do this at the same time. So 2 times 4 is 8. We still have the square on the outside. 2 times 10 is 20. And 5 times 5 is 25. Okay. 8 squared is 64. But we have to just write this out. So you can't do this subtraction here. You have to wait. Now we can do 64 plus 20 and then subtract 25. Left to right though, so you would get 59. Okay, it's important to me that you show the plug-in first. So if you accidentally plug the wrong number in, and I can see that on the test, that it was just a matter of plugging in the wrong number, but mathematically you did everything else right, then that might only cost you a half a point instead of 4 points because I can't understand what mistake you did make. So if you can, just take one step just to plug in the numbers. So in this one, 10, A is 2, B is 5, and that's all we need to plug in. Order of operations says we must do parentheses first, so 5 minus 2 is 3. Write everything else out because you can't do anything else. Now, we need to do exponents next, but we have a small problem because we have these brackets which are still grouping symbols, so we're still in the parentheses of PEMDAS, and so we have to complete what's in here. Now we know 8 times 3 has to happen before the addition, so 8 times 3 is 24. I'm going to do a little skipping a step. 24 plus 2 is 26. So I see that I'm running out of space here, so I just did those together. 26 squared then, that's an exponent. That has to happen before division. So we get 676 divided by 4, and I ran out of room, so the final answer is 169. Okay, so parentheses here first, then multiplication, then addition to simplify the entire inside of the bracket. Then you do your exponent. Okay. All right, let's look at 11. We've got negative 3, and x is 4, minus 2 times b, which is 5, plus 2, divided by 4. Now, one thing I want you to understand is that you can either plug it in parentheses or you can put a dot there. It doesn't matter to me. So in this case, I put a dot, 2 times 10 right here. But here I put 2 in parentheses 5. They both mean the same thing, so it doesn't matter to me. All right, following the order of operations says we need to complete what's inside the parentheses first. But in there, we need to do parentheses. Now, technically, there's no parentheses here. This is representing multiplication. So the next thing we need to do is exponents. So that's 4 squared. We've got to do that part. But since this does not affect this, you could also do the 2 times 5 in the same step. Save yourself a little bit of time. Okay. So they're in completely separate parts of the problem. You can do multiple steps at the same time, as long as they're not affecting each other. All right, so next we need to do this multiplication because addition and subtraction come after multiplication. So we get negative 48 minus 10 plus 2 divided by 4. Now addition and subtraction goes left to right. So negative 48, leave, change opposite. Negative 48 plus negative 10 be negative 58. And negative 58 plus 2 is negative 56. Finally, we can do this division. Negative 56 divided by 4, which is negative 14. Oh boy, I ran off the end. Okay, so none of this math is challenging. You just have to make sure you're following the order of operations. If you have to keep writing it next to every problem, so you can go, good, did that. All right, now I need to do exponent. If you have to do that, then do it. Whatever helps you get it right, okay? It's different for everyone, so if that's what you need, then you can do that. You should do that. Now, in a division problem, these are like separate problems, and in the final step, we actually do the division. So you can be working here, PEMDAS, and working here at the same time. So in the top, we know that there are no parentheses. Next, we go into exponents, which is the 4 squared. So we get 2 times 4 squared, which is 16, minus 8 divided by 2. Okay, I just did the top, just one step. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom, one step on the bottom. So parentheses means I have to do the 5 plus 2 first, get 7, and the rest I'm writing back out. Don't try to skip there, or you're going to do the wrong step, okay? All right, now moving on to the second step of the top. Do we do multiplication, subtraction, or division next? We want to do the multiplication here. We can also do the division here because these two things are both going to happen before the subtraction. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. On the bottom, we're doing multiplication and division left to right. So 7 times 4 is 28 divided by 2. We're almost done. Finally, we can simplify 32 minus 4 is 28. 28 divided by 2 is 14. And our final answer will be 2. Okay, one step at a time, follow your order of operations.